first met Tommy, had to have been freshman year actually. They did this, it was like a magic show during orientation, during like those first couple days that I met him at. And all throughout freshman year, I hung out with him quite a bit along with his roommate Dean, who I was very good friends with. And we all kind of hung out at his dorm, went to movies and whatnot. But I really got to know him, I would say sophomore year. We were rooming in Opus together with a couple of other guys. And I quickly discovered that living with Tommy was different than hanging out with him. I mean, just having him around all the time. He's a high energy guy, talking mile a minute, pretty eccentric, but yeah, it was fun.
I first met Tommy at Playfair freshman year because we had the same birthday, and that's been real marking in our friendship, I think. Tommy became a part of my friend group freshman year and stayed in it sophomore year, and I really got to know him through that time. Every time I have a conversation with Tommy, it's very creative and intellectual, I think. We have interesting conversations. I think that's like one of my favorite things about being his friend is that you always know you're gonna have a fun conversation and one that might challenge you a little bit.
Hi, I'm Lily French, and I'm one of Tommy's friends. We met in Glenn's media class, actually. We worked together on a project, and we had a really good time, and we just became good friends after that. I'd say Tommy's a pretty unique guy. We've had some really cool conversations about like music and TV and even like political stuff. I feel like he always has something like very poignant and very insightful to say.
I first got to know Tommy pretty quickly. We were randomly placed together as roommates. I'm not 100% sure like why. And we were living in McDonald, which is the honors housing here at CUA. And yeah, I think when you're roommates with someone, it's like being in a box with someone else. You get to know them pretty quickly. I think like a lot of us, Tom likes to, work hard, play hard. So I think some of it is just like spending time with friends, like going to see movies. We did that a lot. Occasionally going to a concert. I've dragged him to a few. And just going out drinking at bars. So Tom's stress definitely had an impact on me and would sometimes increase my own stress. And I don't know if that's like a common thing for roommates. I'm sure it is if you're living with someone in a small space. And there were times when I was getting myself caught up in Tom's stress, and I was like, I don't have time for this. Like, I have enough going on in myself. And that was a challenge. I'm a psychology major, so like I want to be able to help handle other people's stress, but I do think it got to me more than I wish it would. And I think that's part of why we were roommates for freshman year, and then in the fall of sophomore year, I went to study abroad in Rome, which was an incredible experience. And during that time, I was like, I don't know if I can go back, because I was supposed to live with Tom, and I think it was around Thanksgiving. I was in Budapest, and I texted Tom, and I was like, I don't think I can be your roommate next semester. I just think it's too much for me to handle. I mean, I have a lot going on, especially after coming back from Rome, I had a lot going on. So that was a challenge for sure. And I think there was some where I felt a little bad because like I wanted to be there for Tom, and like I still want to be there for Tom, but it is challenging because you have to like care for yourself, and like there's other people in your life, and it's like Tom, Tom and I are friends, but it's like it's not necessarily my job to like de-stress him all the time, and I think that's been a definite challenge.
I'm Tommy Sukenik. I'm a senior world politics major. So college is pretty stressful, I'm not gonna lie. I've been facing some difficulties, and one of them was at a rugby house party where I basically was like really depressed and for whatever reason. And so I was surrounded by my friends, I was playing beer pong, and for some reason I just got really depressed and I was just zoned out, like beyond belief. And I've struggled with this kind of stuff for a while, but for some reason this time it was just really, really much more difficult than usual. And and so one of my friends was like, "Hey, like, you doing okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine." You know, as usual, it's difficult because I was wanting to say what I actually felt, but I didn't because of social norms. And so luckily she came back and she was like, "We need to go outside and like take a deep breath, like get some air." She invited me to go out with her and her friends to a bar, and I was like, I'm not really feeling it. So she made sure that I had a friend on my phone to call, and I actually called my roommate, and we stayed on the phone, my roommate and I, until I got back to the dorm. It was just really helpful to have someone to make sure that I was okay during that situation.
I would say one of the bigger things Tommy struggles with is just kind of being alone. You know, he's somebody who's very sociable. He likes to hang out with people. He likes to talk, likes to socialize, and so times where he has to be alone, either in the apartment, the dorm room, library, whatever, tend to be more of a struggle. But I think that's where kind of friendship comes into play, and having friends, because that's an outlet where he can kind of get energized and release energy and have a fun time with other people. I think he's certainly somebody who's more productive hanging around with other people, and so being alone is more of a struggle for him because I think he feels lonely and feels unproductive. But certainly having friends and having kind of that social network that you can rely on, it really helps with that.
I see depersonalization in Tommy occasionally. Sometimes when we're in a cappella together and it's just been a late night and like there's a lot of loud noises and screaming going on at practice, and sometimes he can just check out. But usually sometimes if I remember, I'll check in and be like, "Hey, are you doing okay?" I'd say one of the solutions that I can see for Tommy that I'd say is working is having a solid support system of people who can actually like understand and care about your mental health, and who really like people who have your back. So I know how important it is to have a solid support system and solid grounding techniques, and it can be hard, especially at our age, to find a group of people who are willing to be there for you and understand what you're going through. But I think it's honestly vital in like our survival.
Tommy is definitely a stressed out man. Like I said earlier, he likes to think a lot, which makes our friendship better, but it also can make homework and social gatherings difficult for him in a lot of ways. So he's learning better about himself and how to cope with those stressors that he has and overthinking. And I think what helps him the most is having good, trustworthy friends that he can rely on. For example, he likes to go to social gatherings and be around people and be involved, but he definitely likes to have people with him that he knows have his back in those gatherings and who can, help him through his stressors and talk to him. And for example, with school, he likes to have somebody with him who he can do schoolwork with, who he can interact with, and also keep him motivated and keep him productive. And I think that goes into a lot of the things that he needs to get done or things that he needs to go to. He likes to have somebody there to match his energy and keep him motivated.
I feel like a lot of people can relate to at least like some aspect of Tommy's experiences. It's a generally like universal experience of having mental health stuff when you're in college. Just having that shoulder to lean back on when you're not doing too hot, and being able to be that shoulder when other people need your help. I feel like it's very gratifying to grow as a person. I feel like you've got to really utilize that empathy, and being there for someone or for a friend in need is pretty much just basic empathy, and everybody needs that. I feel like especially nowadays when people are so apathetic and detached from the rest of the world. The bonds that we have made, especially on campus, are just so vital to our growth in this point in our lives and just to become better people.
Sometimes when, there aren't those people that kind of intervene, it's really important for me to just go for a walk, meditate, pray, that sort of thing, just get my mind off of what I'm going through. And I really think that it's much more common that people have these experiences, especially in college, than a lot of other people think. And so it's really important to have that support network and just people to talk to. When I was a kid, I realized that making people laugh is a real power. I was always a social person, but I knew I was different. I talked a lot, and I was bullied a lot. My parents were sad and stressed out, so I had to develop something to ease things. The main way I coped and healed my surroundings was through making other people laugh. Nowadays, I still talk a lot. I'm still stressed out, and somehow, I still like to make people laugh. You might later realize that there is hope. You wake up the next morning and you listen to some music, and you realize that at that moment, you aren't sad anymore. Sometimes things seem sad and lonely and depressing and just weird, but I guess that's just all part of the college experience. Sometimes I think we're screwed. But then again, I remember, I have friends. We are our own characters. You know, college is fucked, but friends, unfuck it.